Good Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome on in. It's Tobin's Fight Show here on 790 The Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. We'll start off. We got a lot to get to today's show. Mario Barrios is going to join the program later on today. He is fighting Gervonta Davis coming up on June 26th. That is my anniversary to my lovely wife, Diana. So I would venture to guess it's going to be tough for me to watch this upcoming fight. I won't tell him that in the interview, but we will talk to Mario as he is defending his version of the WBA title up against Gervonta. And speaking of title defenses, we had a couple of them last night in the UFC 263. And this was a fun week for us, man. We had Dana White on the morning show this week, which was a first for me. I've only gotten to interview Dana in a press conference setting once, and I got the opportunity. Shout out to the folks at ESPN for hooking it up with the opportunity there, and letting it happen. So we got a chance to talk to Dana. Got even to do it via Zoom. Me and Leroy got a chance to look at the war room and all that type of stuff, and it was cool, man. And he said I asked him about Israel Adesanya. We'll start off with the main event, even though I think it probably ended up being the least interesting of the top three. Israel Adesanya against Marvin Vettori. Bad blood going through between these. These guys do not like each other. Both of them prone to conflict with a lot of their opponents a lot. And, you knew it was going to end up being some kind of shenanigans in the lead up to this. And Vettori ends up getting pulled away from the press conference this week. And Adesanya, was going in on him from jump and really upsetting Vettori. But it just looked like just different classes of guys as soon as it happened. And I said this last week when talking about this fight. I just have loved the way that Izzy has responded to a lot of his flatter performances. He obviously doesn't have losses to bounce back from a lot, but whenever he's put up forth kind of a stinker, he seems like he's really come back with a flair. And this one, those first two rounds from him were just so masterful. It was he was watching him go out there and kick. It's like his legs are arms. That's what it's like watching him go out there and pick somebody like Vettori apart. And Vettori is just a guy who's just picture perfect made for him, because he's an aggressive guy, but he's not anywhere near the skilled striker that Izzy is. So he's going to keep coming forward, and it just looks like Izzy has it figured out right off the bat. I think, though, I do think it probably went from being what could have been probably a masterful performance from Izzy. And I'm not here to nitpick a guy who goes and shuts him out. Like, it is what it is. But I almost felt like there was a moment where he got that where Vettori ends up getting the takedown early in the third round. And there's like 4 minutes left, and Izzy pops up like nearly instantaneously. I think that was the moment where it was over for Vettori. Like he didn't have anything for him. He kept trying the thing where he's getting pressed up against the cage. Izzy would elbow him, and he just didn't have the explosiveness, didn't have the next gear to go to. They were talking that he looked bigger. Maybe that was a detriment to him in some way, because he just looks slow. And a lot of guys will look slow next to Adesanya, but I think that in this one, it just seemed like once that third round happened and Izzy wasn't being held down, because there was really only a couple of moments. Maybe Vettori looked like he was going to get a rear naked choke in a second. He reversed that, got mount. Started, hitting with a couple of shots from up top. Just wasn't a position that he could find himself in that he was successful with. So, Adesanya puts forth a really great performance. Puts the stink of the Jan Blachowicz loss, going to 205 and attempted to be a dual weight class champion. He comes back home to middleweight and puts forth a really good performance. I think, like I said, I think if there's a critique, I don't even know if you want to call it that. It's just that, I think he had Vettori so mentally beat. Maybe he could have risked a little bit more in coming forward. But he just seems so content hitting from the outside, just butchering up that leg. hitting him with head kicks every now and then, but not really unleashing the entire kitchen sink on him. Just a great performance from Stylebender. The idea that Vettori came up to him afterwards and said that he won. I mean, if that I hope that's just a hilarious joke from Vettori, because I don't know how you think you could win that fight. Your own coach is there shouting at you every single, you've gone for 20 minutes. You haven't won the championship. You got 5 minutes here. So I don't know what Vettori could possibly think in his head that he was winning that fight, other than I was coming forward, I guess. I don't know. But it's funny thing too, because like I find Adesanya sometimes kind of corny with some of his trash talk. Like some of it just feels forced. He's a masterful, but he's super entertaining to watch in the cage. So that kind of like eradicates a lot of that stuff. But Vettori, I mean, if you want to talk about a dude who's unlikable, I mean, Vettori is just like the sourest of sourpusses. So I just, I was not dissatisfied watching that guy go down, but also not surprising to learn from Izzy that he was claiming victory after that performance. That's something. But I think Izzy does that to guys. I think he frustrates them because a lot of people hate him because he's got a big mouth and he talks a lot of trash, but they go in there, and we've seen this with Paulo Costa, and now we've seen this with Vettori, where they've talked so much smack to him, and they've just looked inept of doing anything against him. And it's I think there's a little of them needing to be humbled and a little bit of them being embarrassed by it. But either way, the champ gets it done, calls out Robert Whittaker afterwards, who I honestly thought deserved this shot before Vettori. I know Robert's got sometimes some health stuff comes up. I know Australia is a tough one for timing wise, because guys who fight in Australia, or hey, if they had to leave Australia, they got to do quarantine and all that. So it's very tough on their families. We've heard that from George Kambosos, talking to him with this whole Triller thing that's going down and the title fight next week. But he did call him out. He wants to do it in New Zealand. I think New Zealand is like completely all the way back. But great performance from Israel Adesanya in that victory. But listen, even though Izzy did work against Robert Whittaker when he won the belt, it was an unbelievable championship performance from him to become middleweight champ. Robert's looked really, really good in the performances since. It was a couple of years ago, and he's looked absolutely fantastic in each one of those performances since. So to me, he's a guy I think that's just got a little bit more in the toolbox. If somebody's going to come and take on Izzy, they need a lot of dimensions. He's a guy who I think brings that. He's obviously super tough. He's been through some tough injuries mid-fight. We'll go through the fire a little bit more. I think you need to be willing to do that against Adesanya if you're going to beat him, and you're not going to be a guy who obviously can muscle him up the way that a Jan Blachowicz can. And it's I think after watching this, and you see that some of the things that Marvin tried to do that Jan had success with, I think you could see that unless there's just that vast difference, they're not going to do that. And Whittaker's not going to go try and win a fight like that anyway. So he's going to have to try and outstrike him. He does have some versatility that helps him there. I'm intrigued by that fight. I'm not ready to pick it yet, but I'm still interested in a rematch for sure with that one. And I think, we've seen Izzy have some seesaw performances. Like, it's not like he always brings the A game in the cage every single time in there, but this certainly I think was one of them. He just he had a dance partner that I think was mentally defeated by round 3. And I think that he had kind of proven his point by that time. I think he knew it. But the moment of the night, I mean, listen, the moment tonight belongs to Brandon Moreno. I mean, like that was everything tonight. There's few things that you love more in this sport as a guy who loves mixed martial arts and just loves all combat sports. There's nothing like the guy who wins his first championship, that climb and getting to the absolute top. It's my favorite thing in all of the sports, because I think a lot of the times these guys get a little bit jaded to defending titles. The all-time greats. Some of them are just like always appreciative, like a Valentina Shevchenko, and you always feel happy for her, or are just really appreciative. But like, some guys get just tired of like asking, oh, who am I going to do this time? Who am I going to do this time? That first title win is just like, as a fan, it's as cool as it gets. You think to like Kamaru Usman winning his championship after a long climb, and just others who have had that opportunity to go to the top after a lot of struggles, or maybe guys not believing in him, or the company not backing him. It's just such a cool moment. But I don't know if I've ever. It's tough coming to one. I guess Rose winning her belt back, she was pretty emotional. But I was in the building for that. I didn't see it on television. Sometimes that's not as easy to gauge when you're there. This Brandon Moreno victory over Davidson Figueiredo, first of all, just absolute domination in every facet of the game. Like he knocked him down in the first round. It was funny, but one of the things I was wondering about is it was such a good round from him because he was dominating the striking, and then he knocked him down. And I was wondering to myself, like, what does a guy in MMA have to do to get a 10-8 in striking? Like, other than just absolutely butcher a guy and bloody them and basically go them to the point where they almost should have been knocked out, but the fight wasn't stopped. But when you beat a guy like that and you get the first punch on him the entire round, and then you put him on the canvas, I was like, man, this should almost be a 10-8 round with how much that was lopsided. The second round, Davidson is trying something new. He goes and gets a takedown, but it's not really doing much with it. And it ends up with Moreno, he ends up finishing this round on top, and it was getting, a bunch of strikes going, and, it looked like he takes that round too. After, and I'm sure at that point, Figueiredo had to be absolutely flummoxed with what was going on, because, it's not going his way. And it looks like everything Moreno's doing, he's either a step ahead of him, is perfectly drilled to get out of any situation. And then he ends up getting the submission win to a guy who is a dangerous submission artist in himself. And just is like, you could just see on Moreno's face, like it just doesn't hit him immediately that he is the champion of the world, because I don't know if maybe he thought, I don't know if it was just too perfect. Like maybe he pictured winning it in a war, or maybe he pictured winning it by knockout. But it's like it almost like feel like he couldn't even comprehend what had just happened with how he went and beat Davidson Figueiredo, and just the emotion that he had. The first Mexican-born champion in UFC history, and it's in Arizona. Big, ton of Mexican flags are flying in the midst of the crowd. He's crying. His wife brings in the baby. The baby's got the headphones on. He's weeping. He's talking about how he was cut from the UFC. It's what makes you love the sport. And you think about this division, which was, on the verge of extinction. Everybody was wondering, it was like almost a running joke with Dana White, like, when are you going to get rid of the flyweights? And you're thinking about a guy like Davidson Figueiredo, who turned himself into basically fighter of the year with how he burst onto the scene. And now you see a moment like this with Brandon Moreno. This has been an unbelievable division for what is craziness, like since losing maybe the guy who's the best to ever fight in it in Mighty Mouse Johnson. It's almost one of those things where you almost wish that they would bring him back now, because now it's like it's revitalized, and now, okay, let's bring the GOAT back from one championship and let's see what's what with that. But with these two, I mean, I wouldn't even mind. You got a draw, you got a great one from Brandon. Maybe they go about it and they do themselves a trilogy. Who knows? But that moment right there, I don't know if anything's ever going to top that for Brandon Moreno in his career, because he just the emotion, the rawness, the realness of all of that stuff. It's tough to replicate that, man. It was an absolutely beautiful, beautiful moment from Brandon Moreno. Really, really cool. We'll take a quick break here on the show. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Leon Edwards getting a win over Nate Diaz. What does this mean for the welterweight division? And other things that went down in the fight game this week. We'll take a quick break. We're back after this. You had Nate Diaz in a matchup up against Leon Edwards, which I would probably say, I mean, honestly, if the biggest draw of this thing, it had a top three that you didn't think was going to miss, because you had a Fight of the Year candidate as the co-main event. You had a pretty big beef and an entertaining champion, Israel Adesanya, in the main event. But I think most people were intrigued because the return of Nate Diaz he's a big deal, man. People love watching Nate fight. He makes people care every time that he's in there, and he was taking on a guy in Leon Edwards who's looking for any level of respect that the guy can get. You know, the guy is just looking to cement himself as a name in the UFC with an incredible resume that he has, an incredible win streak that he has, but, you know, has just had this horrible luck between the pandemic, between the Bilal Muhammad fight, which was a late replacement fight anyway, and he can't seem to catch a break. And I would say that tonight it almost happened to him again, which sounds crazy in a night where he absolutely dominated. But the problem is he did it against the wrong guy and had the wrong moment in the last round, which is all anybody's going to talk about, because Nate Diaz's fan base and the Diaz brothers fan base, it's a love like there's nothing I don't it's hard to contemplate. It's like it's not even it's hard to explain the love that the people who love the Diaz brothers, I mean love the Diaz brothers. I think everybody enjoys them and enjoys their antics, but I'm talking about the people who ride and die for the Diaz brothers. It's like a cult, because the Diaz brothers have such a beautiful way of explaining what fighting means to them and how everything goes in the sport, and how they what the code is of the sport. And you also even just think about the way they go about things, and how a lot of the premonitions and a lot of the things that they believe in are things that are, you know, is kind of the mainstream of what fighters say today. You think obviously about, you know, the marijuana use that is so prevalent today. There's CBD companies all over the place in mixed martial arts and the UFC, and this was stuff that they were just maligned for. So it's almost got like it's warranted, you know. It's like a cult, but it's a warranted cult in a lot of ways. And if you're Leon Edwards, one of the codes is like, well, who's left there standing afterwards, and who's holding on for dear life at the end of a fight? You know, a fight is not just a fight that is scored. A fight is a fight, and who is the guy that looks like they're coming out on top by the end of it? And so Leon Edwards is just dominating this bout, man. He is going out there and he's butchering Nate Diaz's legs. He's hitting him with nasty elbows. Of course, Nate Diaz got cut up and has the crimson face. It's a staple now of the Nate Diaz fight. He's doing the antics. He's going almost even full Nick Diaz with some of the things they're doing, where he's showing his ass to Leon Edwards. He's trying to like goad him over. Like, he's using big brother tactics to try and get Leon to do anything. And you're just like, this stuff's not going to work. And it's funny because you think about the narrative of things as they're happening, and you're thinking to yourself, like, man, this Nate Diaz, why do we care so much about watching this guy fight? Because first 4 rounds, you're thinking to yourself, why do we care about watching this guy fight? You know, I've now watched this guy lose basically 7 straight rounds and getting beat in his own game to Jorge Masvidal and to Leon Edwards. Why do we care about this guy? You know, look at him. He's showing his ass to Leon Edwards. What is the beauty of this? What is the meaning of all this when it comes to Nate Diaz? Why is this guy so beloved? And you get to that 5th round, and he hits you with a Stockton slap with his right and a straight left and puts you on wobbly street. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, oh my God, he may finish him off, and he may pull this thing off and get himself a last-minute win over the number 3 guy in the world. And that is it in a nutshell when it comes to him, is because you think to yourself all these times, you're like, what is the big deal about this guy? Why does he do the things that he does? And then he pulls off something like that, which makes you forget everything that Leon Edwards did in the first 4 rounds of that fight. And if Leon did that, and this is the thing with him where he's got a bit of a cursed living right now, because if he did that against any other fighter on the roster, it could be anybody else. Pick him. Could be Masvidal, could be Tony Ferguson, could be, Colby Covington, Robbie Lawler. Pick somebody in the welterweight division that you want him to go fight. And if he puts 4 rounds like that on his resume to his one mess up, if it's against anybody else other than Nate Diaz, he is gold. And he's going to probably be fighting for gold. Unfortunately, all anybody is going to be talking about this week, and the talk of this fight card are going to be 2 things. Brandon Moreno being the champion and how emotional it was. And did you guys see Nate Diaz's Stockton slap left hand where he hits him with the boom, boom, and almost won the fight? And that's crazy. That's crazy thing. And that's I'm telling you, there is nobody who has the type of bad luck like this Leon Edwards does. It's crazy to me. And so he's going to have to go and campaign and talk about all the great rounds he has. And I'm sure he's going to have a couple of people in the media who are going to go in there and say, hey, well, what about the 4 rounds that he dominated? It's like, yeah, but he's number 3 in the world, and he was taking on an unranked guy who hadn't fought in 2 years. And that guy is awesome, and I love seeing him do his antics, and his antics worked and nearly cost him the fight. And you wish it wasn't that way. Like, you wish that you could just sit here and sit with the beauty of it and be like, come on, man, give Leon a break. He got he was steamrolling, He hit him with the vicious elbow. He gushed him open. He was, he dominated the takedown game. He nearly submitted Nate Diaz. He literally dominated every single facet of the fight, every single type of place the fight could have gone. He was the better man, except for that little 1-2, and the one was a slap, which is crazy. How do you get stocked and slapped and laid into a left hand? How does that happen, Leon? You were right there, baby. So, Nate Diaz is going to continue to have his following. He's going to get, whatever the next fight is for him. Maybe it's a Masvidal rematch. Maybe it's, who knows where he decide. Maybe it's Conor after the Dustin fight. I'm trying to see, at welterweight, who truly makes sense for him. I don't know. But I know this. He's a badass, and people love the guy, man. The type of love they have for him is next level. So he definitely gets a big hat tip for the night. Leon, look, is he going to lose his chance here now to Colby Covington? I would say probably so. I would say Leon is in a tough spot right now. I would say that, maybe him versus Gilbert again, because look, he has a great streak going as far as he has not lost a fight now since 2015. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's 9 wins in a, basically 9 wins in a row with a no contest in there from eye-poking Bilal Muhammad. And, has some good names on his resume. He has Vicente Luque. He has Donald Cerrone, Gunnar Nelson, Rafael dos Anjos, and now Nate Diaz. But, tell me how many of those moments you remember from this run. It's, so I do think it's going to be, I do think there's going to be some pushback on people. And I do think that, the Colby versus Kamaru thing is a grudge match. So I think that's always going to sell. And, Kamaru versus Leon is a rematch, but nobody really remembers it. It was so long ago. So you almost feel like for him, it's not that he has to go earn his title shot, but I think if you're the UFC and you're like, okay, we have grudge match, probably great box office material between Colby and Kamaru right here, or we have Kamaru versus Leon, a guy that, isn't he the guy that nearly lost to Nate Diaz, who's not ranked and hasn't fought in 2 years? So it's a tough one, man. And I would venture to guess that Colby probably just swooped in there and got that title shot.